Good morning, another episode of Online Academy. Your host this morning is the Pacific. The camera and all the computers. I am joined by my friend. I have other friends with us today. Then welcome to the text line or call host. Hello. Text your line, text 562-861. I know if you do have to text or if you have to after the fact, you can email us at or anything you want to say, any observations, any questions, then we'll put them out. So what I want this morning is I want to use those scientists breaks. And I want us all to think about these different so scientists make observations and question is curious that you have acted like a scientist. And one of the big observations fancy word for looking at something. Anybody have any observations about this? It reminds me. One of our live aquarium, so try to outside, right? I would probably see a very today it's a little bit kind of weird. Many of our most of our animals are fish, sharks, however, animals that we will be talking about today are ones that are more usually found as torrential downpour. That's what we are talking about yesterday. If you're making those observations, if you've kind of birds, there are so many different types of birds that there's them in, and they all bring unique adaptations or special features about them. So you notice about their habitat, about their movement, some of the colors that right now we are getting a good bird's eye to their exhibit. Maybe curious. I know it's a little today. So as you can hear into this, there may be a number of things of animals that live in cold areas surrounded by ice. Notice that there's the ice and snow. Instead, we have a lot of rocks. We have areas of nice little here. From South America. The habitat we have in California is for them. Oh, we got a nice view to hang out. So habitat down in South America. Right. And here in the environment and we have and the person that is for. Now, one example of a type of bird. Think of any other type of bird? Any other animal? So sometimes when I think of birds, I think of twins, I think of birds here, I can think of the ones like ostriches. Oh, we got a really good snake bird. And sometimes when you think about predators, you may think of animals or bastards, things like that. We're talking about the birds that we have on our planet. There are things that are unique. There are some things that are different than fish. There are also some things that we have in common with. So one of the things you have in common are birds. Is we have a bone, so everybody has a for all of us. What makes us called vertebrates? There are invertebrates, and those are examples of those animals. So birds Common with birds is that we are threaded. Thread means start now, some of the things that we as humans associate with birds is that they have very light bones. Yes, humans have dense bones, but birds are very light, and that helps them out. Sort of life. Also, something that is very special about birds have feathers. Also have feathers. Now, what those are for and what they kind of look like is interesting about birds. Sort of have reptile-like scales on their body. Hopefully, we'll explore some more about it. That's kind of a general overview of what makes the bird up and some of the. Now, like I said, birds can be found all over the place. And else very highly migratory travel tens of miles. Heard off today, and find some of our birds, ones that we can find in our local we had a new species of bird and for the differences and the penguins. And of course, if you have that can fly as well as. So the habitat that are ones that are local to birds can be found in wetlands where ocean starts to meet water. We got those kind of ponds and of water and a lot of roughage and foliage. Now at the wetlands or first exhibit we have upstairs in the aquarium. It's a little we go back to that we have of our ducks. At that and observation. So a really nice beach on our here against the blue beach. That's well, I think it's cool about this animal. Also, area on the top of this almost job, and then on the now those are similar to what we saw on the picture, but when we look at the bigger overall color of the nice brown, now that we can't see underwater are or the ducks have it really wet with our surface, and one kind of paddles in the water. Having all this in my hand, it has extra kind of loose to help serve as paddle and move a lot more almost like a boat. Now that's helpful if in that amount of time in the water or right where the water is. Now they may not have much camouflage, much ability to hide in the water or right under. So if anyone is a surfer or familiar with duck hiking, because they take a dive, they go right under the water. Paddle flippers up here and then you dive a little bit, or as water. See that really nice throughout the whole time. That's really helpful because the weather are a little different. Maybe not like not with that brown color. They would have keep a kind of profile when they're hanging out in the water. Up the water. It's by sail, this kind of or color as they come out. Advantageous will be able to camouflage the water. Especially those rooted ones, these wetland animals. I also want you to look at the on this animal. Having that kind of flat, almost pursed out sort of for these animals to grab stuff. And also, if maybe quickly dig into the mud or find a little they can use that bill a little bit with the shovel to hopefully kind of pick that way they're looking for things to be able to find it. So if anybody does want to take I definitely get you to any local wetlands that we have or any of the where the ocean is some fresh water. Some of these animals find what will be a good start. Now, I want to take a look at some birds that we do have to travel quite a ways to get to. We don't kind of follow at so if we take a look at colorful birds that we see, some initial observations. What stands out to you? What makes you think about the habitat? What's different about the body of the bird as you're looking at them? A lot different with that. I know when I'm looking at the animals, they are those bright, beautiful colors that I see red, blue, and yellow, with an orange, and then a nice kind of green and yellow down. Now, for those of the aquarium that you might be familiar with, here I traumatized by, and that's because at the aquarium we have the most birds in for you to walk through. And down full of nectar. Now, despite looking here, I don't want to say, but what you see here is a so the reason why I took that little bit of a commentation of the birds because you can watch when we have kids walking into these cages, sure three birds landing on it, taking your nectar and wanting to drink it. Now, about these super I guess in English. But we also have different when you are exploring through Lord Forest, there are three types that you can look out for and the opportunity. So if we're over here on this side, we have our trees. Those ones have red, almost like a tiger stripe going across the back. Now also in the middle, and these ones to the side kind of have the orange strip going with big opposite. So that's what most places are. And then lorikeets. Now the reason why next year here at the Aquarium of the Pacific is because these are called nectar. Only a liquid or a liquid diet. The nectar is also give them the they get food just like how we enjoy food and we also fruit. Now, animals have adaptations for allowing them to them. I'm going to step up and you to see and figure out what adaptations makes back to one of our friends and be able to see how it adaptations that it has. So one of the big adaptations that these animals have is their beak. Having that nice little sharp beak allows them to kind of crush up any types of fruits that they like. But now that we're seeing a more close-up video of these birds eating, you'll notice that they have kind of a long tongue, and they also have bristles on the edge of their tongue, kind of like a toothbrush or a paintbrush. So what that means is every time they go to either lick or try to slurp up the liquid they like, or if they're drinking more of like an applesauce consistency like this, having all those little bristles on the edge of the tongue means there's more area for that liquid and that food to adhere to. and so they will be able to get more food every time they are going to eat. And so that's why sometimes when our birds are a little bit hungrier here at the aquarium, they can definitely, I wouldn't want to say swarm, however, they can often do that. Sometimes we'll go into lorikeet forest and we'll have guests that have cups of nectar in either hand, and they get 3 or 4 birds that go and land on them immediately and start trying to get the nectar. Now, another adaptation that these animals have is obviously their wings. Some of these birds are better at flapping their wings kind of instantly and making smaller movements, whereas larger birds, like maybe birds of prey like hawks or condors, those animals may rely on wind currents and being able to soar a lot more. So our rainbow lorikeets having those kind of shorter, almost stuttered movements is really helpful because it means they can stop and slow down and really gently land on a tree branch or on someone's arm as they are feeding them. Now, something else that's very special about these animals is that they are super, super social. So when we have them all together, it is called a flock of birds or a flock of lorikeets. And these animals, you can hear them when they are social. There is also a kind of pecking order or a sort of who's the highest bird and who are the lowest birds, and you can hear that communication when it is feeding time in the aviary, and that's always very cool to hear. So not only can the adaptations be kind of physical attributes on the body, they can also be the way these animals interact or the way they communicate with each other as well. Now, one of the things that I also think is super special about the lorikeets is obviously the color on them. These animals are super colorful, and that's because they are found in more tropical areas. So think of regions around Australia. When it comes to the Edwards lorikeet, the all yellow one, those can be found almost exclusively around the Papua New Guinea regions. Now, for guests that have come that have been visiting from Australia, oh, that's such a good picture showing off the super inquisitive curiosity of these birds. Now, when we've had guests that have come from Australia, they usually are a little bit, they have mixed feelings about lorikeet forest. And the reason why is because these birds are just about as common as pigeons or doves or maybe seagulls for us here in the local coastal area. So these birds are pretty much everywhere in Australia. But what's really interesting is that even though sometimes guests may see them as pests, sometimes they may see them a little bit of a nuisance depending on their relationship with them, birds are actually a super, super good indicator of the overall health of an ecosystem. Now, I'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end, but I do want to make sure that we have time to take another look at some of our other super charismatic here at the aquarium. I want to take a closer look and maybe a little bit of a deeper dive at some of our penguins. So if we could go back to maybe our penguin live cam or just any of our penguin pictures, I want to talk a little bit more about those awesome birds that we have. Oh, and it looks like we got a really good picture of a penguin colony. So as we were looking in our exhibit, we noticed a lack of snow, noticed a lack of ice, and instead we saw a kind of long, stretched out beach with lots of different rocks on it. And that's rarely what we want to formulate with our exhibit here at the aquarium. Now, all of these birds you see spending some of their time on land, but a lot of our penguins also spend some time in the water. And that's because that is the primary space where they will be getting their food. When it comes to animals like our rainbow lorikeets, those animals spend more time in the trees, maybe amongst vegetation, and they really like to eat, or I guess drink the nectar from different flowers and also any fruits. But as you're looking around here, do you see any fruit trees or anything that's kind of flowering that these animals would be able to eat? I don't really see anything. So instead of looking up in order to find food, these birds, especially these penguins, are going to have to look towards the water in order to find stuff. So what type of food do you think these penguins may be eating if they are going hunting or fishing in the ocean? What do you think they're eating? And also, how do you think they're finding the food that they're eating? What differences do you see on the body of these animals versus the lorikeets? Maybe compare them to that first duck that we took a look at. So for our penguins, these animals will be hunting and finding their food primarily in the water. And what they like to eat are any small little schooling fish, anything that is maybe a little bit bigger than them, but these animals aren't really taking bites out of their food. Unlike the lorikeets, who were kind of crushing up their food and more drinking it, these penguins are actually swallowing their food whole. So the preferred food of these penguins are small little types of schooling fish, or maybe anything else that's small and slippery, maybe like squid, maybe small pieces of shrimp, things like that. Now, for these penguins, like I said, they are going to be mostly swallowing their food whole. They don't really have the ability to take bites out of things. But that's okay, because penguins do have a specialized mouth and beak in order to eat those fish. One, they have a really long beak, nice and kind of pointy and sharp, which means they can grab that slippery fish easily. But also, what's really unique about a penguin's throat is that they have all sorts of kind of backwards facing spikes. So what that means is when a penguin swallows a fish, the fish will not be able to come back up. And that's because all those spines facing kind of this way in the penguin will keep the fish down. Now that's why penguins are able to swallow their food whole. Sometimes they can even fit 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 fish in their mouth at once. But one of the ways that they are able to swim down there is because of the way their bodies are shaped. So as we take a look at our penguins moving and kind of swimming around, what parts of their body are they using to propel themselves? Is there anything that's staying still? Is anybody surprised that these ones aren't really flying around? So different birds may fly in the air, like our lorikeets. Ducks can get a little bit of momentum. But animals like our penguins may not necessarily fly in the air, but it almost looks like they are flying as they are swimming through the water. So as you take a look at those penguins moving around, you'll see that they are using those wings that they have, almost like propellers, to push themselves in the water. Now, yes, these animals do have feathers, but they don't have the long feathers that kind of hang off and branch out like a lorikeet, or maybe like some sort of raptor, like a bird of prey or something. They do have all these feathers that you can see right here, but these are going to be helping these animals stay warm. It's not really going to help as much with movement, although it does help them get a nice kind of sleek movement through, like glide through the water, but it's not going to be keeping them above the air like other birds use their feathers for. These penguins, like I said, have incredibly dense feathers, and it's going to keep them warm. But what's interesting is that when these animals are diving or kind of swimming down under the water, because there is so much air trapped in between their feathers, every now and then you see almost a little trail of bubbles as these animals are swimming beneath the water. So I'd see if we're able to see that as these birds are swimming and diving a little bit. Maybe not in this one, but it is giving us a really good look at them using those little wings, almost like paddles. Now, like I said, other birds may use them to flap, but these birds will mainly use them to steer and for momentum. They also have the almost webbed-like feet that ducks do, so that will give them some more power in the water as well. Now, one of the other things that you might have noticed right before we switched over to another video is you might have noticed a band with little beads on the arms of our penguins. And those are the name tags for the colony that we have here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. These animals are a part of a larger species survival plan. Oh, let me move over so we can see them moving now. Look at all those little bubbles. No, those aren't just penguin farts. Those are all the air bubbles that are trapped underneath their feathers. And they do spend a good amount of time grooming their feathers to make sure all of them are in place. And so when you see them swimming, that's why you see a lot of those kind of bubbles coming up. It's all just trapped in between those little feathers. Now, when they're not either diving to look for food, when they're not hanging out on the surface, you can oftentimes find these animals grooming themselves. But like I was saying, if they're not grooming themselves, if they're not hanging out in the water, we are sometimes able to see that little armband that they have, and that's how we're able to identify who is who. These animals are a part of a larger... Oh, awesome. Oh yeah, we do see a nice little band. So all the numbers will correlate with a name. Or I guess all the colors and pattern will correlate with a name. They also all correlate with the families too. So if there are mom and dads of these penguins here at the aquarium, we're able to keep track of that. I believe they usually have a similar color, and that's how we're able to know. And then here we're also getting a look at a penguin egg and kind of the process for what it looks like caring for them here at the aquarium. So because they're a part of a bigger plan, we at the Aquarium of the Pacific collaborate with other zoos and aquariums to make sure that when we are housing or moving these penguins around, that we are keeping a very healthy and robust amount of their genetics in these settings so that we do not have to hopefully take in any more. And that also if these animals do need any help or do need any saving, when we are having these animals reproduce, we know that they're not passing down anything that could be bad for these animals, and that also we're not having any siblings of these animals mating with each other as well. So because of that, we work really closely with other zoos and aquariums. We often trade penguins, have penguins come and join us. But as I was saying earlier with the lorikeets, all these animals and all these birds are a very good indicator of the overall health in an ecosystem, and that's because these are usually highly migratory animals. A lot of our birds that fly, like our lorikeets or any types of shorebirds, if the habitat that they're in isn't suitable for them, they can just get up and go somewhere else. So if we see birds continuously hanging out in an environment, we know that there are probably plenty of food sources available for them. That means food sources for other animals, and that's how we can kind of tell that that environment is still doing very well. Now, if anybody is ever curious about what we can do to better protect birds or what we can do to save specific species, there are a number of things that we can do. Some of the things that we recommend here include simply researching the animal. Just by being here, just by learning and tuning in today, you are gaining some more information about the different types of birds that exist and also the different areas that they can be found. Since they are so widely spread out throughout the world, there are a lot of things that will kind of blanketly affect a lot of these animals. And it looks like we're getting a really cute look at the penguins here at the aquarium too. I think this is always such a cute video to watch. So when we're talking about birds and helping protect them, like I said, because they are found so widely throughout the world, there are lots of things you can do to better protect them. When it comes to animals that we find locally in our wetlands, what you can do is you can pick up trash in our local wetlands, you can pick up trash at the beaches. That will definitely help out those shorebirds. If you are ever curious about wanting to get more involved with these types of animals, you can always volunteer or work at any sort of wildlife rehabilitation centers. When it comes to things like oil spills, that sometimes can affect a lot of birds that hang out either on the surface or find food right below the surface. So I know that's a good way to get involved as well. But also, if you just want to learn a little bit more about these animals by being here, by learning today, if you want to research these animals when we're all done, you are more than welcome to do that as well. And then just by spreading the word about how important these animals are, and also by helping support us here at the aquarium, you are able to help us with some of these baby birds and some of the cool work that we do. So if you do have any questions or any last observations, you are more than welcome to let us know. We got that live chat down there. We got 562-286-1838 if you do have any questions. Or like I said, if you are watching after the fact and you want to email us, you are more than welcome to at live@lbaop.org. So like I was saying, these animals are a very, very good indicator of different ecosystems being very healthy. And here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, we want to make sure that we are keeping those birds healthy and also those ecosystems. So that's why whenever any of our penguins or lorikeets have any babies, we are very quick to monitor those animals. Sometimes with our birds, they are not the best parents the first time around. So oftentimes what we do is we will take the egg, we will give these birds what's called a dummy egg or a replica egg for them to sit on and finish out their biological processes. And then what we will do is we will monitor that egg. So we have several incubators behind the scenes, almost like a small little bird-friendly toaster oven to keep them nice and warm. That kind of simulates the mother bird sitting on that egg. And then in one of those previous pictures that you saw a bird being held up to a flashlight, and that's how we can check on the development on the embryo inside. Oh, someone was wondering what kind of baby chicks we have. These are baby Magellanic penguins. Oh, so a quick note on baby penguins. When they are first born, they are born a little bit more fuzzy. I know some penguins, I believe it's the emperor penguin, when they're first born, I believe they're kind of like already the size of some of the other ones. They're just not as featherful. So when a lot of penguins are first born, they are born super, super fluffy. Oh, yeah, there we go. So they're pretty much the same, almost the same height. I mean, there's a little bit of difference, but almost the same height, and you can see just super fluffy. And then as these penguins grow older, their fluff usually turns a little bit more into feathers. And then also it's worth noting that most penguins and most bird species often molt or kind of shed their feathers. So you get a stage where they do look, I mean, I don't want to be mean, but they do look a little funny. Like definitely bits and pieces of their feathers are taken off. And they also are not the happiest at that time. I know they're a little grumpy too. So there is a point when all of them kind of shed their feathers, and it's called their molt. And it does look different, and I'd say more or less funny depending on the species. But that was definitely a good question. So those were little babies, and usually you can tell if they look kind of fluffy, and then as they get older, they develop more of these feathers. So if you do have any more questions or anything else, you are more than welcome to email us. We will have another program coming up at 10, and I believe it's about whales, so kind of going the opposite end of the spectrum. We'll talk about the big animals, or I guess the small animals in the air, and now we'll talk about the really, really big ones that live in the ocean. So if you do have any other questions, like I said, we got the information down here for you to let us know. But if not, thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day here at... Sorry, you're not here at the aquarium. I'm here at the aquarium. I hope you all enjoy your rest of the day, and I hope the weather doesn't get you down too much. Thank you for tuning in, and if you want to join us at 10, we'll be learning about whales. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.